Ah yeah, Zorin OS, the Linux distro that had a bit of a buzz for a while. You know, Windows-like interface, polished marketing, even a pro version you can pay for. That sure made me curious enough to check it out. I did not install the pro version, however, and oh boy am I glad. The system was overall slow. Windows opened laggy, software installation took ages. Sure, it offers Flatpak as a standard, but that's about the only positive thing to say. Well, it comes with Brave as the default browser, which you have to manually set as default on first startup. Why? It's the only browser on the system after installation. Also, Brave. Really? The browser that constantly breaks compatibility with online banking, healthcare portals, and government services in general. It's a brilliant choice for Windows refugees trying to do actual work. Well, Zorin OS does include something called WinApps for Windows app compatibility. Except it doesn't actually come with WinApps. It comes with a menu entry that triggers a lengthy install auto setup process. Turns out WinApps is just bottles and wine in a fancy wrapper. Nothing really special. And it takes almost 10 minutes to install via an Ethernet connection. So, if you want a distro that tries desperately to be like Windows, follows Ubuntu's LTS schedule, and wraps everything in a bloated, ultra-customized GNOME desktop that feels like navigating through Jello, go right ahead. For me, this is not worth my time, or money for that matter. This brings us to Nix OS. Nix OS is the best OS you probably shouldn't use. At least that's the ominous title of channel Superuser Tech's video on the matter. And since his video is very informative and probably a must-watch for people who consider the Nix OS treatment for their own system, I saved myself the trouble and just leave a link to said video in the description below. Next, Rocky Linux. Specifically Blackmagicdesign's dedicated version of Rocky Linux. The official Vinci Resolve ISO file. One should expect this to work. The installer was a bit clunky and somewhat old school in certain areas, but it completed and said everything was fine. Until reboot. There was no bootable device to be found. Just a black screen with F key options to fix things, which led straight back into the BIOS. I tried multiple times, checked secure boot settings, and double-checked that it was the only drive in the system so there would be no confusion about boot order. Nothing. It never booted. So the one distro backed by an actual professional software company doesn't boot. It's just brilliant. Right. This is not my first run-in with OpenSUSE. I tried installing it on my main system several times, but every time the ISO from the official website was somehow corrupted and it just wouldn't install. This time, the ISO actually worked. Progress. The installer is not what I'd call intuitive. It walks you through the same basic steps as any Linux installer would, but the layout and sheer variety of configuration options can be a bit overwhelming. I worked through it and it completed the install and rebooted straight into a TTY prompt. No desktop environment. Now I've installed several Linux distributions at this point. I know sort of what I'm doing most of the time, and somehow I managed to miss selecting a desktop environment. Even though I couldn't even find that option while reviewing the recorded footage. Here's the thing, that should not be possible. A proper installer either makes desktop environment selection mandatory or defaults to something functional. Or at a minimum warns you before finalizing, hey, you're about to install this system without a graphical interface. Are you sure? Yast did none of that. It let me complete the entire installation process, commit changes to disk and reboot without a single warning that I was about to boot into a text-only system. If I can walk into that trap, what chance does an actual beginner have? So, moving on to OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Unlike Leap, this one actually installed and booted properly. Same company, same installer, slightly different layout, completely different result. I call that an improvement. You see, Tumbleweed is a rolling release with a built-in rollback function. I actually had this on my main system briefly during the NVIDIA Quadro K6000 ordeal. And let me tell you, the rollback function works. I made good use of it when GPU drivers didn't play ball. Roll back, system boots, try again. That's genuinely useful. Beyond that, it comes with the usual Firefox and LibreOffice. I installed it with KDE Plasma as my desktop environment. No TTY surprises this time. But then, printer detection. It didn't automatically find my printer. Of all the things, I didn't expect that as a friction point. Other distributions handle this way better. And here's the larger issue. Rolling releases mean constant update management, new packages every week or so, testing whether updates break your workflow. That's fine if you want bleeding edge software and don't mind the maintenance overhead. I need a system that works and stays out of my way for the most part. So Tumbleweed is technically competent. Solid rollback functionality, but the rolling release model doesn't fit my workflow and it can't handle basic hardware detection that other distros manage automatically. I don't know. For you, Tumbleweed might work. For me, wrong tool for the job. That brings us finally to the Linux distro you are supposed to use, by the way. No, not Linux Mint. I'm talking about Cachy OS, which is based on Arch. By the way, Cachy OS offers KDE Plasma as standard, but you can choose from multiple desktop environments during the installation process. I went with Cosmic and Plasma, the only two valid options in my book anyway. Trying to select more environments triggered an error message I had no patience to deal with. So Cosmic and Plasma it is. Starting with Cosmic. Pop! OS does the initial setup better. Pop! Walks you through what each option means and what needs to be configured. Cachy OS just drops you at the desktop and lets you figure it out on your own. Okay, Cosmic's design is solid enough that you can figure it out on your own, but who needs the extra hassle? Then again, this is Arch. I should probably be grateful there is a GUI at all and I don't have to compile the settings menu from source code. Also, the same audio glitch as Pop! OS. Anything above 39% volume and the audio cuts out entirely on my Optiplex. So that seems to be a consistent problem across Cosmic implementations with certain hardware setups. Cachy OS's package installer is essentially just a GUI wrapped terminal. It's all pretty much text-based. No visual browsing, no screenshots, no descriptions unless you already know what you're looking for. That can be a bit cumbersome. Well, I installed LibreOffice, which works fine, same as the pre-installed Firefox. The printer was detected automatically. More importantly, there's no printer section in the settings menu, which is typical for Cosmic desktop environments because it's usually in the app section. But in this case, there was no printer option at all. I switched to the KDE Plasma session. It also has no printer section in the settings menu, even though KDE Plasma usually has a spot for that. Furthermore, there is no Discover Software Center, just Cachy OS's own GUI terminal package manager. I tried to install Krita, and off the bat it was an invalid package from the Cachy OS repository. Here we go again. This is too much faffing about for my taste. Look, Cachy OS is definitely an approachable route into the Arch Linux world. If you want rolling release packages optimized for performance and don't mind maintaining your system, it's very competent. But I want my tools to work on my workbench, not spend my time building the workbench. Cachy OS still requires too much intervention for my taste. Too much troubleshooting, too much maintenance. It's not for me.